There is another question from Amal about who is Haroot and Maroot and what is the truth about them.
That's right. Haroot or Maroot are known to be two angels of God, which taught people certain things. And the Holy Quran has spoken on the issue. It was at the time of Hazrat Sulaiman, and there are two different things said in the same space of some observations. One is related to those people who were trying to create disorder against Hazrat Sulaiman, and they used tricks to create fitna, to create disorder. And this was referred to as talism or magic or whatever you may call it. Now, God did not teach the angels magic. What he taught them was to take countermeasures of that propaganda which was carried out with a scheme and a plan against Hazrat Sulaiman والسلام, to topple his government. So they also took countermeasures which were very secretive. But according to those measures, everyone swore to secrecy. Such strict secrecy that the wife will not tell that secret to her husband, and the husband will not tell that secret to the wife. So this is what is mentioned, that what they were taught was not disorderly things, not to create disorder, but they were taught good things by Allah. It were people who later on misused the same instructions for evil things, for evil objectives, while what they were taught was for a good objective. Now, as I have read the history of Hazrat Sulaiman. With reference to that history, I can understand it very clearly as to what was happening. There were mullahs of that period, religious scholars of that period, who were conspiring against Hazrat Sulaiman and propagating that this man has started worshipping the gods of the idolaters. He is married among them. He has bowed to their will, and now he has become only the voice of his own wife, which is from the idolaters. Like his master's voice, he has become his mistress's voice. And this was a propaganda carried out so seriously that even Bible the scribes of the Bible accepted it as a part of Bible. And when you read such things, you are horrified. On the one hand, God praises Hazrat Solomon to be the wisest man of his age and also a true prophet of Allah. On the other hand, the Bible gives us the account of his being completely given over to Satan and satanic practices and worship of evil and this and that. So this is what the Holy Quran wants to wash off from his image. It says it for evildoers who spread this propaganda, to topple this government. To counter that, we taught a plan to two angels. Here, I believe the two angelic persons are mentioned. If we study the history of Solomon, والسلام, you'll be able to, I'm quite sure, you'll be able to identify those two very sincere servants of Hazrat Sulaiman, who took into their hands of countering this movement, and by telling everybody secretly as to what they were and who they were and what was happening. So whatever the measures were, they were told by Allah to be kept secret. Like the propaganda was also secretly carried out. Now those measures have to be some very effective measures. They were mentioned by Allah, they were taught by Allah for the sake of achieving goodness. But people later on distorted them and used them for counterproductive or evil purposes. That is what I understand from this verse where Haroot and Maroot are mentioned.
But there is one point, Hadoor. The verse says, يعلمان وما أنزل على الملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت. That Babel is mentioned. That means Haroot and Maroot were in Babel.
That's right.
And this was before Hadrat Sulaiman alayhi salam.
No.
After?
It was during his reign.
In Babel? Because in Babel the Jewish were taken, the Bani Israel were taken.
I'm not talking, I understand from this, yes. And I'll again refer to the historic references, and you also further study. I have a very clear impression that during my research I found it to be at the time of Hazrat Sulaiman. And Hazrat Sulaiman's kingdom extended in those days like never before and never after. The kingdom of Israelites had extended. You know, he went even to the south, where he actually intended to conquer the kingdom of Saba. So his kingdom extended beyond the borders of the known Arabia of that period, and went into spilled over into Baghdad, I mean not Baghdad, Iraq.
Yeah. That means the kingdom of Hadrat Sulaiman reached Babel.
That's what I mean.
Oh.
It had reached there. Now, I have also to make very important observation that these mischief-mongering attempts, such disorderly conspiracies, always begin at the borders, not in the center. Because look at what happened to the history of Islam, and you will see all these things started taking root at the border of the kingdom. That is why the Holy Quran tells us to have your horses ready at the borders, rabitu, for defense. So that is why I understand Babel is mentioned. Babel was a city which was situated closer to the borders of Solomon's kingdom. And these attempts must have been started from there. To counter them, God also told the messengers to two angels who were residents of Babel. If you don't accept this scenario, then nowhere in the history of the prophets of Israel you can fit this. You see? There's nowhere else. Whose was that great kingdom which reached, even the borders of Iraq, which extended up to that? And who it was against whom conspiracies were carried out? Who it was who was promised by God in acceptance of his prayer that the kingdom like yours, will never be given again to anybody. Who it was who, after whose death these conspiracies succeeded. And they ultimately toppled the government of Solomon, and then the great empire came to an end by splitting into two parts. So all these historical facts point at this verse and agree with the scenario presented in this verse. That is why I have no doubt about it. But if you find any counter proof from your study of history, let me know. I'll be open to change my opinion.
جزاكم الله خير. السؤال هو عن من هما هاروت وماروت. وقد بين أمير المؤمنين أن موضوع هاروت وماروت يتعلق بسيدنا سليمان عليه السلام وملكه الواسع العظيم الذي منحه الله تعالى له، والذي امتد في بلاد الشام حتى حدود العراق بما فيها بابل والجنوب إلى اليمن. وكان هذا هو أكبر سلطان وصل إليه بنو إسرائيل في ملكهم في هذا الوقت، وهذا الملك الذي وعده الله أنه لن يكون هناك ملك بعده مثله أبدا. يقول أن الملات أو الشيوخ أو رجال الدين في زمن سيدنا سليمان كانوا يتآمرون ضده ويشيعون ضده أمورا غير حقيقية، منها لأن كانت له بعض الزوجات من الأمم الأخرى، قالوا إن هؤلاء الزوجات قادوه إلى الكفر بالله وإلى عبادة آلهتهم وأصنامهم، وأشاعوا هذه الأمور عنه كي يحدثوا القلاقل والاضطرابات في حكومته. والقرآن ينفي هذا ويقول: وما كفر سليمان ولكن هؤلاء الشياطين الذين كانوا يثيرون الفتن، مثير الفتن يسميهم القرآن شياطين لأنهم يخرجون الناس ويضللونهم عن الطريق المستقيم. يقول أمير المؤمنين أن هذه المؤامرات تبدأ دائما خارج أو قريبا من حدود البلاد كما حدث بالنسبة للأمة الإسلامية، فإن الفتن كانت تأتي دائما عند الأطراف، فكانت بابل في أطراف الدولة الإسرائيلية السليمانية في ذلك الوقت، وكانت أيضا تثار هناك الفتن. وأن هاروت وماروت هؤلاء رجلان، القرآن يقول ملكين، والملك يطلق على الإنسان الكريم، الإنسان الملائكي في طباعه، الإنسان الطاهر، فهؤلاء رجلين طاهرين كانوا يقومان بأعمال مضادة لما يقوم به هؤلاء المتآمرون. هذه الأعمال كانت تدبيرات تحتاج إلى تنظيم خاص وإلى حفظ للأسرار، فكانوا يطلبون من أولئك الذين ينضمون إليهم ويساعدونهم في هذه الإجراءات ألا يخبر أحدهم حتى زوجته، أو الزوجة لا تخبر حتى زوجها، وهذا ما يبينه القرآن: يفرقان بين المرء وزوجه، أي لا يخبر أحدهما الآخر بمثل هذه الأسرار حتى تبقى محفوظة وتنجح في أدائها لمهمتها. ويقول أمير المؤمنين أن هذه القضية لابد وأن تفهم بهذه الطريقة، لأنه ليس هناك في التاريخ الإسرائيلي ما يمكن أن ينطبق على المفهوم الشائع بين الناس، فدولة إسرائيل كانت هي الدولة الكبرى في ذلك الوقت، وأنه بعد وفاة سيدنا سليمان أمكن لهؤلاء الشياطين أن ينجحوا في جهودهم وأن يثيروا الفتنة وأن تنقسم دولة إسرائيل أو الحكومة الإسرائيلية إلى قسمين، ثم شاع بعد ذلك الفرقة فيما بينهما.
Now, you have not told them about the scribes of the Bible who accepted these as genuine allegations against Solomon and included them in the Bible. This is a positive proof of tahrif, and the proof of the Holy Quran when it says that you have done tahrif in your interpolation in your scriptures. So that is why I said these efforts were made by the religious leaders of that period, because it was to preserve. The Bible was in their hands, so they distorted it as they liked it.
والدليل على ما يقوله أمير المؤمنين أن هذه الإشاعات والأكاذيب والتهم الباطلة التي كانت تروج ضد سيدنا سليمان أنها لا تزال موجودة في البايبل في العهد القديم. يحكون عن سليمان عليه السلام أنه عبد هذه الآلهة، وبالطبع الذين يكتبون هذه الكتابات هم رجال الدين، وليس من المعقول أن سيدنا سليمان وهو نبي من أنبياء الله يعبد الأصنام أو أن يخرج عن التعاليم التي أوحاها الله تعالى إليه. فهذا دليل على أن هذه الإشاعات من صنع رجال الدين، بدليل أنهم أثبتوها في كتابهم الديني.
And this is the verse which you are referring to.
والقرآن برأ سيدنا سليمان من هذه التهمة الشنيعة، وهذا دليل على التحريف الذي أدخله رجال الدين في البايبل.
Seher means many things, among them a fraud, cheating, and a lie. That is why the enemies of the prophets call them sahir. They are committing frauds, they are cheating, they are lying. The Holy Quran says that the enemy of Solomon were using sihr, which means cheating, fraudulent measures, spreading lies and falsehood. And the ultimate purpose of those spreading of lies, etc., those measures, was to tell people that Solomon had renegated his faith. That is, he has left his belief in God and has done something else. But it was they who had done who committed this crime. This is clearly mentioned in the Holy Quran. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. Now, immediately after this, Babel is mentioned as a countermeasure. So my inference from the Holy Quran seems to be supported by the way this whole incident is treated by the Holy Quran. And in the end it says, whatever countermeasure they were taken, if anybody was hurt, it was not because they wanted to hurt anybody. It was never done without the permission from Allah. That is why it is said it was a guided movement. And وَمَا أُنزِلَ requires Allah's constant guidance of what was happening. So when Allah told them to take certain measures, if somebody was hurt because of that, it was not their responsibility. They never meant to do it, but as Allah wanted, then they did. So this is the whole picture.
يقول أمير المؤمنين أن كلمة السحر ذكرت في هذه الآية، ومعنى كلمة السحر لها معاني كثيرة، منها إشاعة الأكاذيب والأباطيل والأمور غير الحقيقية. ومن العجيب أن الشياطين هم الذين كانوا يفعلون ذلك ويتهمون بما يقولون وبما فيهم يتهمون سيدنا سليمان. وهذا أيضا ما كان يتبعه الكفار في عهد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، إذ يطلقون عليه اسم ساحر أو لقب ساحر، أي أنه مضلل كذاب يشيع الباطل، بينما هم في الحقيقة هم الذين يتصفون بهذه الصفة. وهذا الأمر شائع نراه في كل وقت، أن الكذابين دائما يتهمون غيرهم بالكذب، مشيع الفتن يتهمون غيرهم بهذه الفتن. ويقول أمير المؤمنين أن الآية القرآنية تدل على أن هذان الملكان أو الرجلان الصالحان كانوا يتبعون أسلوبا من عند الله تعالى أنزل على الملكين، وأن هذا الأسلوب كان بغرض الحفاظ على ملك سيدنا سليمان وحكومته وسلطانه في هذه البلاد. فإذا استخدموه هم بعد ذلك، استخدموا هذا الأسلوب في إيذاء الناس، فليس الذنب ذنب الملكين، وإنما ذنب هؤلاء الذين يستخدمون هذا السلاح فيما يضر وليس فيما ينفع.